As 2024 dawns, it has ushered in a series of dramatic events that signal a turbulent year ahead. From a devastating earthquake in Japan to escalating conflicts and famines across the world, the notion of peace seems more fragile than ever. In our latest video, we dive into the chilling predictions for the year with 10 shocking biblical prophecies for 2024. We begin by examining the rapidly deteriorating ties between China and the United States, centered around the contentious issue of Taiwan. Join us as we uncover the profound implications of these prophecies that are bound to leave an indelible mark on your perspective of the future. With China being aggressive in the region, people in Taiwan are figuring out how to protect their country better. To where things get really interesting, in 2024, Taiwan plans to spend a lot of money, a record $19.4 billion on defense. They also made military service longer. Now, in his New Year's talk, China's leader Xi Jinping repeated the Communist Party's threats to take control of Taiwan, even though China has never governed it. The Pentagon warns that China is making more nuclear weapons faster than they thought. It's possible that China is planning a mass destruction. The next prediction involves concerns about a potential nuclear assault by North Korea on the U.S. or its partners. And it's stated that any government attempting such an attack would face severe consequences. The United States has cautioned North Korea that any nuclear strike against the country or its allies is not acceptable and will lead to the downfall of Kim Jong. Discussions on nuclear deterrence are underway as part of an agreement between the two nations to share more information on planning in case of a conflict with North Korea. But that's not what is shocking. Pyongyang has created and tested various ballistic missiles capable of reaching targets in South Korea, Japan, and the U.S. mainland. Moving on, we have the intensifying conflicts between Israel and Hamas. The war that began in October shows no signs of calming down. Challenges persist, and a resolution is not in sight. Unlike many countries at war, Israeli officials haven't set deadlines and have warned of a prolonged conflict that might extend throughout 2024 and beyond. The goal of completely dismantling Hamas, as Prime Minister Netanyahu stated on October 7th, is considered ambitious and, according to many analysts, nearly impossible. Hamas's influence extends beyond Gaza, highly ambitious, if not entirely achievable for Israel. This year, the war could become increasingly intense, leading to numerous casualties on both sides. The next prediction is quite scary, as it may lead to worldwide consequences. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which began in February 2022, has been described as more dangerous than anything Europe has seen since the end of World War II. Both sides have since suffered devastating losses to their military personnel. The Kremlin has battered cities all over Ukraine with missile attacks, even as Ukraine has fought to regain lost territory on the battlefield and keep up a counteroffensive. Thought to be tired of the conflict and resistance growing in Washington to open-ended financial support, Putin may see the war in Gaza as an opportunity to push his advantage. Last autumn, he withdrew Russia from the global treaty banning nuclear weapons tests, and, with the world's largest nuclear arsenal, some Western arms control experts are concerned that Putin may be inching towards a nuclear test to date and evoke fear. At the end of 2023 and beginning of 2024, Russia intensified its bombardment in two of the most brutal attacks since the war began. A Russian missile even entered the airspace of NATO member Poland, increasing the risk that the military alliance will be forced to retaliate. Now, when it comes to predictions, Nostradamus is a name that's quite famous. However, not many know that Nostradamus, whom people mixed his made-up predictions with real ones, he secretly read in the Bible. This made people who didn't know much about the Bible think that he was credible. Born in the 16th century, Mikhail de Nostradam shared his vision of the future in his 1955 book, Les Prophéties, predicted events like the Great Flood of London, Hitler's rise, and Queen Elizabeth II's death. Nostradamus's predictions about the future often use language from the Bible, especially about the end of the world. However, the predictions I've talked about are not mine. They all come from the Bible, and each one pointing to Jesus coming in anger to set up his great kingdom on earth and judge the world fairly. Because he was worried about the powerful Catholic Church seeing his astrological work as wrong, Les Prophéties was written in a mix of Latin, Italian, Greek, and Provençal to hide its true meaning. Some people who believe in Nostradamus say that his predictions show that he correctly foresaw different world events, including natural disasters, bad things people did, and the deaths of important people throughout history. Even though his writings are not very clear and can be interpreted in different ways, did you know that some think that he predicted this year's earthquake in Japan? With lines like, "The dry earth will become more parched, and there will be great floods." He made people think about the credibility of his predictions. He also mentioned that 2024 would have a great famine through a harmful wave, which believers think harmful wave means an earthquake. Now, there is a shocking prediction related to the royal family too. In a surprising revelation for both the British royal family and the public, Nostradamus is believed to have foretold that Prince Harry will become the monarch following King Charles III, according to media reports. How could this be when there is Prince William? This unexpected assertion comes from author Mario Reading, who in his 2005 book, titled Nostradamus, The Complete Prophecies of the Future, suggests that King Charles III will step down from his throne, paving the way for Prince Harry's ascent. Reading also claimed that Nostradamus had predicted the death of Queen Elizabeth II in 2022. According to Reading, this prophecy, written in the Mystic's Book of Poems 450 years ago, anticipated King Charles III assuming the throne in 2022 at the age of 74. Reading speculates that dissatisfaction among the British public, stemming from Charles' actions towards Lady Diana and their revengeful divorce, influenced the predicted change in monarch. Nostradamus' prophecy suggests the unexpected rise of a man other than Prince William, indicating that Prince Harry would assume the throne as King Henry IX at the age of 38. Now, did you know that Nostradamus predicted the death of a pope in 2024? There is speculation that Pope Francis might be replaced soon, as indicated by the astrologer's predictions. In the astrologer's words, "Through the death of a very old pontiff, a Roman of good age will be elected. Of him it will be said that he weakens his see, but long will he sit and in biting activity." Currently 87, Pope Francis has faced health challenges, and recently he had to miss the UN climate conference due to lung inflammation and breathing issues. This raises questions about whether he might consider stepping down from his responsibilities or facing more severe circumstances. However, there are more shocking things that might come to life this year, and one of them is destructive earthquakes all around the world. In Revelation 11:13, it has been predicted, "And at that hour there was a great earthquake, and a tenth of the city fell. 7,000 people were killed in the earthquake, and the rest were terrified and gave glory to God in heaven." Matthew 24, verse 7 says, "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and in various places there will be famines and earthquakes. For all these things are merely the beginning of birth pagans." So what about famines and earthquakes? There have been no doubt earthquakes and famines in the first century, and during every generation since. It's hardly necessary to add this, that not only false Christs and false prophets, wars and rumors of war, earthquakes and famines occur every age throughout the history of the Church, but so do all to persecutions and defections. But what does it mean when Jesus says that the earthquake will happen in various places? In many places means that the disasters in question will be widespread. According to Robert Gundry, the putting of famines for earthquakes may indicate that famines result from the ravages of the warfare just mentioned. The wars that are about to happen will bring with them large amounts of destruction and devastation, with famines coming along with it. If we follow the order from Revelation, then it's clear that the famine is the result of war, as is usually the case. Predictably, preterists believed that Christ's prophecy of famine was somehow fulfilled in AD 70 when the Romans destroyed the temple in Jerusalem. As we can see, the year 2024 is going to be far worse, and World War III is quite imminent, it seems. To conclude, the most notable events this year would be the Iran-backed militias initiating attacks on U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria. raising concerns that the Israel-Hamas conflict may escalate into a broader global war involving regional allies. The UK and US devising plans for a potential armed response, with the UK indicating a willingness for direct action. The ongoing conflict is seen as part of a larger strategy by Iran, controlling groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, contributing to what some perceive as World War III against Iran-led radical Islam. The situation is complicated by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, adding another layer of tension and the potential for a wider conflict. The complex dynamics in the Middle East, coupled with global power struggles involving China and North Korea, raise fears of an interconnected crisis with severe economic and geopolitical consequences. It seems like we might be in the end times, and there's no other sensible explanation for the current situation. John the Apostle got a glimpse of what the end times would look like, especially the last 7 years before Christ comes back. In Revelation 6, he documented what he saw about the future, and war is a significant part of those events until Christ's return. I strongly encourage you to genuinely believe in Jesus Christ. Turn away from his sins so that when he returns to rule, you'll be well prepared. Take this word. You have to either believe it or reject it. That's up to you. But I hope you believe it, and I hope we'll pray, and I hope we as a nation will do the right thing. Pastor Perry Stone has been someone who has seen many visions and dreams, which have all foretold many calamities of the United States in great detail. God has revealed to him how each disaster that has struck the United States has not been the unfair wrath of God, but something that's been brought about by human beings on themselves. And yet, all of this is part of God's plan. And now God is showing his servant a new vision that does not bode well for the United States and all those who live on the coasts of this nation. He warns us that God's immediate wrath and judgment will be upon us if we do not heed his warning now. But what is this vision that Pastor Perry has seen, and what is going to happen to the United States if they fail to obey the commandment of God? Well, let's find out. We can see Pastor Perry starts by assuring the believers that this video is not clickbait, unlike what many other televangelists and modern-day preachers do to increase their views, likes, and shares on the platform. He makes it clear that his intention is not to fear-monger or to bait people in for views. Pastor Perry starts by saying that, come heaven, hell, or high water, he has to share what was shown to him by God, which is going to be a forewarning to the United States of something great that's going to happen to them if they fail to listen to God's commandment. Pastor Perry then begins to explain what was shown to him in the early hours of November 9th, 2023. Pastor Perry begins by stating his reason for making this video by quoting Amos chapter 3, verse 7, which says, "Surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without revealing his plan to his servants, the prophets." This is a reflection on how the prophets of Israel repeatedly used to warn Judea and the nation of Israel as to the commandments of God and the prophecy and word of the Lord if they fail to obey him and keep his commandments and disobey him. The preacher then goes on to remark how he believes that all prophecies recorded in the Bible, with nothing new being revealed to God's people other than what has already been mentioned in the Bible. He believes that the U.S. has fallen from grace of God and is now blinded by false teaching, which has made everyone run behind false prophets and preachers, giving prophecies that are untrue, but spiced up to ensure that they stay in the spotlight. Pastor Perry Stone dismisses these preachers and says that God does not need to send prophecies weekly, as if something new and unexpected is going to happen that was not already mentioned in the Bible. He says that America has to be prepared as it was once a Christian nation that is now wayward, and God is not going to punish them because they didn't listen to some self-acclaimed prophet or prophetess, but because they broke his word and his law, the Bible. Pastor Perry then says that God has always warned the nation of Israel before a great calamity is struck, quoting the Bible where God had given the first prophecy to Adam, saying how the earth would first be destroyed, once by water and a second time by fire. Pastor Perry then goes on to teach how God had warned the children of Israel whenever a calamity was going to befall them, whether it be because of their disobedience or otherwise, was coming their way. He quotes the examples of the 10th plague of Egypt when God warned the children of Israel about the angel of death that was going to pass over all of the houses, including them, and then on the invasion by King Nebuchadnezzar and the city of Babylon. Pastor Perry then recalls the continuous dreams he's had for many years as to how tsunamis are going to strike every coastal area of the United States, and starts telling his fellow believers the most recent dream he had on November 9th. And this is where things get really shocking. In this dream, Pastor Perry Stone, his wife Pam, and a group of believers, both teenagers and young adults, were sitting and talking together about the Lord when a great earthquake began to shake the house they were in. It was so strong that it even shook the foundations of his house. A subsequent aftershock that hit after the earthquake made Pastor Perry go outside to see what was happening when he noticed that water was rising to his knees, and it was from the ocean. The tsunami was so bad that it had already reached his front porch. That's when a person's phone rings at the time, and the man at the other end advises Pastor Perry and his family to go to a certain location where it would be safe. Pastor Perry will then ask the Lord in his dream as to why he would allow such a thing to happen to the U.S., and what is revealed to him may leave the masses astounded. Pastor Perry says that no matter what kind of resistance comes his way for what he's about to say, he would be answerable to no one but God alone, just as everyone else is for the words they speak and the teachings they teach. Pastor Perry then proclaims that the U.S. is going to come under the judgment of God for the willful shedding of innocent blood. Before Pastor Perry moves forward with his warning, he explains how the law of the willful shedding of innocent blood is given by God to his people in the Bible. He quotes Deuteronomy 21, which portrays a scene where when a man is found to be dead or put to die, not by the hand of one willingly, he has to notify his neighbor and perform the ritual ceremony of cleansing his hands in the blood of a red heifer. Then he talks about how this correlated with the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. Once Jesus was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane, he was brought before Pilate to be judged. Pilate's wife had warned him that it was revealed to her in a dream that if he brought any harm to this man or sent him to die, they would suffer the wrath of God, and they would be shedding the blood of an innocent man. Pilate, knowing the laws of the priesthood established by God to the Jewish population and this particular law of innocent blood, would ask for a bowl of water in which he washed his hands in front of the Jewish population to signify that he has no role in putting the Lord of Lords and King of Kings to death, for Pilate knew that he was innocent. But the people of Israel had said, "Let his blood be upon us and our children," and cursed themselves according to the law of Deuteronomy 21. The city of Israel then suffered this very same curse 40 years down the line when the entire city went up in flames, when the Romans surrounded the city of Jerusalem and brought it down to rubble. The thing is, Christ himself had foretold the shedding of innocent blood by the people of Israel in Matthew chapter 23, and how the people of Israel have always taken upon the blood of the innocents, for which they would suffer the consequences in their lifetime. In Matthew 24, Christ also tells us that not one stone will be left upon another in the temple, prophesying the forthcoming destruction of the city. Pastor Perry then goes on to tell something that he deems as controversial but necessary. He talks about how, in the time of Moses and the Exodus, the Pharaoh had thrown all the male Jewish babies into the Nile to make sure that the population of Israel did not grow and wage war against him. Pastor Perry remarks that Pharaoh's son would die in the same manner in which Pharaoh killed the Jewish children, with water. And sure enough, the Pharaoh's son drowned in the Red Sea while chasing the children of Israel. Pastor Perry then continues and says that America has been put under the judgment of God's wrath by the way of tsunamis because of one very controversial thing, abortion. He says that how a child is born and formed in the womb is surrounded by fluids. However, the monumental decision of the Supreme Court in 1973 in the Roe v. Wade case would legalize abortion, causing many children to die before they even had a chance to be born. Pastor Perry continues to talk about how God has known us before we were even formed in our mother's womb, as said in Jeremiah chapter 1, and by how King David said the same thing in Psalms 139. He also talks about how he has already named us before we were even born, as we see with Samson in the book of Judges, John the Baptist in the book of Luke, and even Jesus himself in the book of Matthew. And this was even before any of them were conceived in their mother's womb, just like God said. Although the courts overturned the decisions made in that case last year, many states are now trying to bring it back. It shows how bad the nature of sin is prevalent in our society. Pastor Perry then goes on to say that the reprieve that the Supreme Court granted is the last chance for America to get right with God. Because if the states go to the ballot and cast their lots and reverse the reprieve in their individual states, the United States of America is going to face the wrath of God from coast to coast. Pastor Perry confirms that the next elections will be the point of no return and the final chance at salvation for the states, and he shows the surety in his vision by telling how he foresaw 9/11 by 5 years and even saw the Louisiana oil rig explosion in his visions. Pastor Perry then tells us how Nathan the prophet had approached King David after he had gotten Uriah killed and narrated a long parable about how two men, one rich man and one poor man, had sheep. Nathan asked what the rich man should do to compensate for what the poor man lost unfairly to the rich man. When David pointed out that the rich man should pay the poor man fourfold times, he had unknowingly called upon the judgment of God and himself, and what happened soon after. But Sheba lost her son, and David lost another 3 children. How terrifying the wrath of God is to those who commit unrighteousness. And just like how King David pronounced his judgment, Pastor Perry says that God is waiting to see what the United States pronounced as its judgment in the November 2024 elections. Pastor Perry finally urges every person watching this video to pick up a Bible and read through it, because many think that God has not said anything about many such things. He says that if anyone picks up a Bible and reads it, they will find out that God has spoken on what is right and wrong on every topic there is to know about. Pastor Perry also warns us that in the upcoming election, all those who have known what God wants concerning this topic must vote against evil and uphold God's righteousness during these end times.